Today on the news and why it matters, more information on the whistleblower and the Trump impeachment inquiry. And Beto wants to confiscate your guns. He has a really solid reason for why the government should basically take all of your weapons. Got a lot coming up. It starts right now. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Happy Friday. I feel like after this week, it only makes sense that we have our beer, except for Pat, because he's too good for us. But don't be fooled. I actually have a margarita in my cup, so we are ready. We are ready to go today. Stuber Gear, Pat Gray from Pat Gray Unleashed, and Josh Hammer from the Daily Wire.
Always a pleasure,
Sarah. Yeah, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
All right, so we want to thank our sponsor before we get into it, Relief Factor. Pat and I were just talking about Relief Factor before we started the show, and about how Relief Factor has worked for so many people here at the studio. It's worked for Glenn, it's worked for me, it's worked for Jason Buttrell, who was in the military and did a whole bunch of terrible things to his joints and his knees. So Relief Factor, if you have not tried it and you are one of millions of Americans you just walk around in constant pain and you're like, well, this is life and I hate it and it sucks. Yeah, don't do that. Try Relief Factor. It's 100% drug-free. It targets the inflammation in your body, which oftentimes that's the root cause of your pain and you don't realize it. So
remember, kids, alcohol only takes away the pain for a short period of time.
That's why you have to. That's why you have to keep drinking it.
Right, that's true. That's true. That's true. It might cause some other issues.
Nah.
If you drink that much, but I don't know.
Nah. Prove it. Yeah, prove it. If you're in pain, you can go to relieffactor.com. Try their 3-week quick start pack. 70% of the people who try that, they go on to keep ordering more. It's working for that many people, and it's only $19.95 to try it. So you can go to relieffactor.com, or you can call 800-500-8384. So now there is a new report out that the whistleblower, in fact, worked for the CIA. I know John Solomon was on with you guys on Glenn Beck radio program. Was it Hour 3? If you guys missed it, go back and listen to Hour 3 of the program, because it was really fascinating information that I do want you to walk us through. But Josh, you haven't been here. We haven't talked to you since all of this circus has struck. As an attorney, what are your thoughts on all of this dog and pony show and the Trump impeachment inquiry over this phone call?
Yeah, wow, dog and pony show is the right way to describe it, right? So there's actually a really nice legal blog I would recommend it to the viewers of this podcast called Legal Insurrection. There's a guy named William Jacobson, who's a Cornell law professor who blogs there. It's great stuff. So he had a very nice post on this, I thought. This complaint is clearly written by a lawyer. The whistleblower, him or herself, may or may not have a legal background, but this was clearly done with the help of attorneys. It is heavily footnoted. It is making constant references to statutes, executive orders. It reads very much like a legal document. So that implies to me, my best guess is that this person is probably not a lawyer by training. It's possible, but like I know enough IC folks just to know that, like, that's not necessarily your typical background. So what I'm trying to get is this person had help. And really, my ultimate conclusion, taking this a couple steps further, I was resistant in 2016 to a lot of talk of deep state. You know, I try to avoid conspiracy theories. I didn't like all this conspiratorial talk. The deep state is real. I mean, the sheer number of leaks from this administration that we have seen since January 2017, really. Obviously, there was a phone call with the Australian Prime Minister that got leaked. There's all sorts of stuff that have gotten leaked. This is the clearest indication, though, and it goes both ways, okay? The IC is not just at war against Trump. Trump has been kind of in a state of war against the IC really ever since the Comey fiasco started, okay? So it goes both ways. But the deep state is real. I mean, Ted Cruz got in flack last month for tweeting out the deep state. People were like, oh, Ted Cruz has gotten all Trump being conspiratorial. No, Ted was right. And this whole fiasco proves it. And honestly, the conclusion that the aforementioned William Jacobson had in the Legal Insurrection blog post, which I think is totally spot on, he said that if there is essentially a conspiracy emanating from within the deep state to take down the president, and that is just going to undermine all sorts of trust between the White House and the intelligence community, that is a far bigger problem than the President of the United States asking for help in perhaps slightly inappropriate fashion to investigate 2016 nonsense with an ally. And Ukraine is an ally. So that is the big story here, and it's a mess. It is properly taking up headlines because the country cannot properly function with an intelligence community and a White House that are just butting heads with one another. That's not good. Not good for anyone.
Yeah. Stu, I feel like if we found maybe a different name to call it, like not deep state, then everyone would be on board. It's just the messaging of saying deep state, you're automatically labeled some sort of conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, I think what happened with that, and because Glenn was saying it today too, same thing, and the term got grabbed by people without this information, and it's like the globalist has the same problem, right? Like there's certain parts of globalism that are really bad, right? Like losing your sovereignty is really bad. The idea that you see this with a lot of the Brexit conversations. You saw this going back to Bush. And the treaties that that were in place when he was talking about people from other countries coming in, murder suspects in our country, and how we dealt with those. And it seemed like we were ceding our sovereignty in a lot of those interactions. And those things, when we were talking about globalism at that time in that context, it was a real problem. Now globalism means like you want to have any trade with China and you're a globalist. And it's like, well, now that term means nothing to me anymore. And I think that sort of happened to me with deep state. We did a special on this, gosh, had to be the beginning of maybe 2018 when the deep state stuff was out there a lot. And he said, okay, the deep state, let me tell you the different kinds of it. Now there's several different types of deep state. This crazy one over here, that is not real. There's not like some, crazy room at the top of a tower where everyone's looking down and, it's the Illuminati's not a thing. Right. However, the State Department, being a bunch of unelected people in a bureaucracy who don't necessarily share the vision of the United States as the president, who don't like the president, who have done a lot of things. I mean, go back to the New York Times op-ed, right, with the unnamed person there. All these things have been done to undermine his administration. And as much as you may like or dislike the administration, you still have to take your duty seriously. And if your duty is to not only it should be within the bounds of law and Constitution, absolutely, but also to support the president's agenda. That is part of this deal. And we've seen so much leaking and other things to try to undermine that there is a version of the deep state that I think is real. It is just, it's not the Alex Jones part. And so it's hard to separate the actual words from that vision.
Yeah. Pat, what are your thoughts?
Did you just say the Illuminati's not a thing? Why don't you go Google Rothschilds, okay? Cadbury, the Mars family. Okay. All the candy people are deeply into this. Okay. I don't even like the shallow state, let alone the deep state. Maybe we should deal with that first and fix what's going on. I'm just so tired of the fact that no matter what was contained in this report, or the phone conversation of the transcript, the Democrats were going to think it was the worst thing that's ever happened in this country. It's the biggest scandal that's ever happened. This is bigger than Watergate. And Republicans were all going to say, except for Ben Sasse, there's nothing to it. He's completely innocent. Now, I think it's closer to what the Republicans are saying, but I'm just so tired of it being so predictable, and everybody is just a partisan hack now.
Yeah, the misinformation is really strong in this particular one. Yeah. You've got lawmakers tweeting. I mean, AOC tweeted out that he confessed. Like, confess to what? Asking about Biden? Sure, but was that a crime? Is that impeachable? No. Yeah. And then you have, Adam Schiff with his whole during the committee hearing when he introduced it, and he gave this account of what actually was in the transcript when it was nothing of what was in the transcript.
Satire from this committee in an official hearing. Yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, well, he claims he was doing satire, except he was very serious the entire time. He never laughed. He never cracked a smile.
Even if it was satire. That's a really inappropriate, really bad place for it.
Right. So,
really
we played it on the show yesterday. He just went through basically the Democrats' pipe dream of what they wanted Trump's conversation with Zelensky to be. And then when he was called on it, here's what he said.
As an aside, I want to mention that my colleague is right on both counts. It's not okay, but also my summary of the president's call was meant to be at least part in parody.
At least
in part. You know, you got the one part that's parody. You got the other part that's just trying to crucify this guy for nothing.
Stewart defense, right? Oh, I was just kidding on all the things I was wrong on.
Isn't this below the integrity of the House Intelligence Committee?
Yes.
It's just astonishing.
Well, I mean, you go back, especially with Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
It's like he's the one who said he had direct evidence that Trump colluded with Russia, and we still haven't seen that.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, Sarah. When I first read this transcript, it's like 5 pages. It's short. I literally just actually started bursting out laughing. Like I really try hard not to be like a reflexive, like partisan hack defender of the president. I try to call it like I see it. Yeah. There's really nothing here. I mean, I think it's slightly inappropriate at the worst. But it's just Trump being Trump.
Exactly.
He's not. If you read the transcript, he's not even listening to Zelensky. It's like it's literally like going one ear and right out the other. I mean, he's just like talking. It's just Trump.
It struck me as he was actually just reading notes.
Yeah.
Like, crowd strike, it's called. He even says that they call it crowd strike. Who's they? What are you talking about? It's not they call it crowd strike. Like what? He's just like it seems like I've got these words and I'm just saying them. That's how it came off to me, at least as a transcript. Now, we didn't actually hear the call, and it's not an exact transcript. And
but we know how Trump talks.
But that's how he exactly. And I think all this stuff is priced in. Like, I think there is a little bit of it's a little icky, right? Like, one of the things we talked about with John Solomon today, and he was talking about it as it applied to Biden, but it goes for everybody, which is your job when you're doing these foreign relations is not just to avoid conflict of interest, but to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest. And so the president right there, I think, does a bad job. Like, I mean, of course, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to take it as an appearance of conflict of interest, even if it wasn't. I do think that, the vice president potentially being involved in shady activities is in our national interest to find out if that's actually happening or not. That's not nothing. People like to just say, well, he's just trying to get information on his opponent. Well, no, this is not just his opponent. This is a guy who's vice president of the United States in a very key moment during all sorts of shady activity going on. But I think that there is that thing that everyone kept posting, like, this is just a Rorschach test, and here's the blue dress. Is it the blue dress or it's all those things. And I know everybody at this table tries really hard to make sure you're not one of those people. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to look at those things. We criticize Trump on stuff all the time to the constant irritation of the audience.
I didn't vote for him.
Right, exactly.
I did not vote for the guy.
Exactly. So stepping back from that, you look at this, and it's like, there are elements of it I don't like. It's it's not the greatest moment in any president's history, but I find it very difficult to separate it from Biden's actions. Yes. And I believe this stuff goes on all the time. We've said over and over again, and we were one of the first shows doing all this Biden-Ukraine stuff, and we said over and over again when we talked about it, this is not necessarily a crime. It's a little grotesque. And it's a big problem that we need to be rooting out of the government overall. But all of these influences, when it comes to the government using their power to get things that they like done, that also happen to align with our interests most of the time because they're not idiots. Yeah. That stuff needs to be rooted out, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we can just apply guilt. You see a lot of people on the right applying guilt to Biden and, I believe Trump's best intentions. And the opposite happening with the media. Well, Trump, Biden, that was part of foreign policy. And then we go, let's take the negative outlook on Trump. You got to apply them all equally. Mm-hmm. And at least what we try to do.
And for Biden to say that every credible agency has looked into this and they all decided it was. Name one other than Glenn and Stu and the team here looking into it. Yeah. Name one agency. And for all those reporters to stand around and just soak it in and not say, really, Joe, who?
Right.
Who looked into it? Name one.
Well, John Solomon, who now has there were some secret memos that he now has that show more, there's evidence there to suggest that Biden was, in fact, pressuring them.
There's a lot of information there, and he has information from inside Burisma, which is the natural gas company in Ukraine, that Hunter Biden was working for. And you kind of have to. It took him an hour to basically explain it. He can go to the Hill.
Yeah,
He's got it there. No, I won't do that because people are already sick of me talking. One thing I thought was pretty interesting was. Let me give you one main talking point that comes from the media and the left about the Biden story. And, as you point out, almost nobody's covered it, especially in the mainstream media. The New York Times did do a write-up on it at one point. There's been, The Hill, mainly John Solomon, has done it. There's been some reporting out there about it. But one of the main talking points from the Democrats is that Hunter Biden couldn't have been part of Biden's decision making, because at the time all this went down, when he's saying, he's admitting on camera that he did these things, he withheld money, all the investigations were done and they were over on Burisma. And it's a good point. It's like, if that's true, when I heard that initially, I was like, well, we got to check into that, because if that's true, the timeline doesn't really work on this.
Yeah.
As John uncovers here and has pointed out in extensive detail, there was one investigation that did end in 2015, and that's the one they always talk about. But there were 2 other additional investigations going on all the way up until the Trump administration and well into it. So I think up into mid-2016. So they were going on when Biden was there, when he had this big badass speech where he held back the money, for all that stuff. There were investigations going on, and that blows up a huge part of their narrative. Will they cover it? My guess is going to be no. But that it's true. It's out there.
All right, back in a minute.
He's got all the documents.
Yeah,
You can go to the Hill.
insane.
He's got them all posted raw, too. You can go check it out or read it.
Before we get back into the conversation, we want to thank our sponsor, realestateagentsitrust.com. Thank you, Glenn, because it's Glenn's company. He started with his wife and his brother. And it's basically a matchmaking service. If you are, you're looking to buy your house, you're looking to sell your house, you're looking to move from one location in the country and go relocate in a completely different place that you have no idea where are the nice, family homes, where are the houses that aren't next door to drug dealers. These are the basic things that you need to know before you move to a new area.
We should also point out that this is far different than the matchmaking service Jeffy started, which was realestateagenthookups.net. Totally
Very
different
service.
It
Not
definitely
affiliated.
is not affiliated at all.
affiliated.
Do not go to that site.
That one will actually get you near the drug dealers.
Yes,
So you
yes.
don't want that one. You want realestateagentsitrust.com. They have already vetted these real estate agents to make sure they're the experts in their area. They do this full time. And most importantly, they share your values. So they're going to know where you and your family are going to be safe and where you guys are going to thrive. You got to go to realestateagentsitrust.com. They've got real estate agents all across the country. They have one where you are located. realestateagentsitrust.com. So just to kind of wrap up how this is being spun by the left, we spent the previous segment, Josh, you mentioned how this was basically a big fat nothing burger.
That's right.
Right? I mean, it's much ado about nothing. And yet we're still hearing these. I feel like it's more of a screech at this point, or like a squawk, whenever Nancy Pelosi or Maxine Waters or any one of
She does look like a bird, too.
She does.
I think it actually
I think
fits.
that's the facelifts, but I don't know.
She looks like a bird with a lot of plastic surgery.
Yes, not a normal, not a natural bird.
Complete facelift, then yeah.
A plastic bird. Here is what she had to say yesterday, Nancy Pelosi. Of course, hadn't read the actual transcript, had no knowledge, wanted to go full on impeachment inquiry. Here's what she had to say yesterday.
That they're set out to do, following the facts and the time that it takes to find the facts. As you know, you never know where we're going next. Now I think we're getting involved in the cover-up of the cover-up, and that may be something that will take some time to investigate.
Huh?
I don't.
First of all, they need to take time to get to the facts, which I would think should have taken place before you launch a formal impeachment inquiry.
Well, I guess the inquiry part of it, maybe they're
But-
like,
but-
well, we're going to find out if maybe
Right.
there's something to impeach him over.
But the facts are on the piece of paper that's a transcript of the conversation.
Congress has subpoena power. You probably, in proper order of things, should be subpoenaing witnesses before declaring you're going to do this. I mean, let alone the vote count. I mean, imagine if they try to do this and then enough Democrats defect and she loses on the House floor. I mean, talk about watching political suicide of a decades-long career in action. It would be kind of glorious. But she's talking about a cover-up there, Sarah.
Cover-up of a cover-up, yes.
There is no cover-up here, okay? The president, he had every constitutional power in the world to claim executive privilege and keep this stuff from getting out to public. He didn't do that. He could have easily done that. That is well within his constitutional authority, as the Supreme Court has consistently interpreted executive privilege doctrine. He could have easily done that here, and he chose not to.
Yeah, it's because one of the accusations here, which on its face seems somewhat convincing, is they moved this this document, this transcript, to a more high security thing, and it seemed out of place. And as the Times noted today, it was out of place in previous administrations. It's not really out of place here. And why? Well, one of the first 2 calls the guy had as president got leaked to the media. So of course he's terrified about these things being leaked. So that's a much more natural, normal practice within the Trump administration. And to your point, Josh, like, he does not need to release this stuff. What he's done is release it almost immediately as it became a story. Now, you can make an argument, and it may be true, that he just wanted to get out ahead of this. Look, the election, but by the time the election comes around, I mean, I can't even imagine we'll be talking about this anymore. Like, right. Get it out there, let everybody digest it. We'll fight it as hard as we can, and it'll be gone. That may be true, and it may be smart strategy as well. But I mean, look, you don't have to release it. He redacted small portions of the classified portion of this. Number one, he could have not released the classified portion at all. Number two, he could have redacted a lot more. He didn't redact a lot out of the Mueller report. I mean, he consistently has shown, like, look, here's everything. Just look at it. We all know how they're going to interpret it. Here's how we're going to interpret it. I think that's a smart thing for him to do. I don't see this as one of those cases where he's hiding it. He's telling you what it is. You've read it. Yeah. How can there be a cover-up?
Pat, do you worry that the Botox has gotten to Nancy Pelosi?
I do, yeah. I think it's gone straight to her brain. Mm-hmm. And the commercials tell you that it can travel to different parts of your body, and it's dangerous if it does. And I think it's affected her. It's affected her face. It's affected her thinking. Yeah, she needs to go home and rest. Like permanently.
Like now?
Yeah, like forever. Just go back to San Francisco.
Just in a nice, comfortable, Craftmatic,
right back to her
bed.
Nice little home. That's probably $30 million.
Yeah, but is emission-free.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then just to show how Trump derangement syndrome is in full effect in the mainstream media, the New York Times took their time to come up with, it's the most bizarre thing I've seen in a while. We only have a short clip of it, but here is what they came up with and posted on Twitter in regards to this whole Trump fiasco. Watch. And I will, of course, narrate for the podcast listeners. So it says, a long time coming for a White House far, far away. Doesn't make sense. Star Wars credits.
Trump, Star Wars sounded like Anthem.
Episode 45.
We do not have the rights for that.
The last straw. Chaos has engulfed the Republic for 3 years. Trump and his allies have ushered in the obliteration and moral norms for personal gain. But now the president has launched a fresh assault on fair elections, the crowning glory of American democracy. To restore some semblance of order to the universe, Nancy Pelosi has announced an official impeachment inquiry into the president's abuse of power in pressing a foreign government to investigate his political rival. While the Congress of the Republic scrambles, the citizens of the galaxy reflect on a few of Trump's previous actions. He divulged classified information to foreign officials. He publicly undermined American intelligence agents while standing next to a hostile foreign autocrat. He hired a national security advisor who knew he had secretly worked as a foreign lobbyist. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
That's
I mean,
exactly
I'm not kidding.
The speed I have to read this real Star Wars thing in every
I know. I'm like, oh gosh, I'm losing it. I mean, there's another minute and a half of that. It just lists every single thing.
Like,
right?
if Huffington Post did it, I would laugh at them. The New York Times is doing this? What? The world's gone insane.
It really has. It really has.
I don't know the average, because I remember when I first started following politics, I don't know that I would have made the separation between the New York Times and the Huffington Post, because they both suck. Like, the New York Times does do legitimately good reporting at times. In fact, they really are the only ones who in the mainstream media who did anything on the Hunter Biden fiasco.
That's true.
And they actually did report some of the stuff. But then they do nonsense like this, and I don't know how you can't convince a conservative to take them seriously.
Incredible. All right, back in a minute.
Effed up it is.
Yeah. That was good.
Pat, what happened on More on Trivia today?
We had Dallas versus New Orleans, and Dallas won.
Woo! Yes.
News.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the More on Trivia is always right, unfortunately.
Yep.
Almost always.
Yeah.
About 80% of the time.
Well, Drew Brees isn't playing, so I guess the typical Cowboys are able to just kind of get them. Well, out the Hall of Famer. Wow, we didn't need to play them.
Yeah, because your season's going great.
Hey, we're 500, baby. Up to 2-2. Exciting.
Yeah, just squeaked out that one last night.
Hey, we'll take it. We'll take it any way we can get it, honestly. After the last two games, which they were squeaked out against the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm happy to take the victory. Sorry, Pat.
What are you going to do?
Still 3-1.
Yeah.